Hey, everybody. It's Sunday, September 8th, 2024. Another edition of Montreal Hockey Talk. On this episode, the Canadiens have released their rookie camp roster. We'll go through it. Who should be there, who won't be there, and who, surprisingly, everybody thought should be there. Then we'll talk a little bit about Corey Pronman. Number 6 prospect pool. Really? Then we'll look at Cole Caufield, what he did to honor Johnny Gaudreau. And then finally, we'll talk about the comparison that Jean Perron made between Patrick Laine and Stephane Richer. Yes, folks, it's time for Montreal Hockey Talk. Welcome to another edition of Montreal Hockey Talk, folks. I am, of course, Coach K. And like it says below, make sure you like, subscribe, and get notified every time I open my mouth. Because, I like to say stupid things, and a lot of times people do not agree with me. And, hey, that's the nature of what we do, right? We bring out opinion, and we try to make discussion. Now, in talking about that, before we say anything else in regards to the show, I wanted to bring up something that I noticed, because I've been doing this a long time. We started Montreal Hockey Talk, or Hab Stephane Radio, back in the day in 2007, transitioned to Montreal Hockey Talk in 2010. And one of the things that we never did was we never lied about what the subject matter was on the show. We did a pre and post game. It was pretty straightforward. And all you got was pure, unbridled, unbiased opinion from 4 guys and a producer in the booth. But lo and behold, nowadays, when I look at the podcasts that are out there, it's always, this is big, this is surprising, this is amazing, you'll never guess. You know what, everybody? I don't want people to get sucked in by clickbait. And that's what happens quite often on the internet. We all know it. We click on something, 2 seconds in, damn, we're gone. It's the real deal here. You're going to get my opinion. You're not going to get somebody else's. And that's what I pride myself on. If you don't want to listen to my opinion, that's great. There's 100 other different podcasts out there that you can choose from that'll give you the same type of opinion. And most of them are cookie cutter and could give a rat's ass if you agree or disagree. I do. And I actually come back to you with some kind of reasoning on the internet. So that's that as far as that's concerned. But I want you to be careful, because everybody gets sucked into this whole, this is big, oh, what a surprise type of thumbnail that they put out there on YouTube. But that's not what you're going to get from me. You're going to get reality. And so I pride myself on that, and I want you guys to follow because of that. Now, in speaking about reality, the first things first, the Canadiens released their rookie camp roster for this year. And there's no real surprises, in my opinion anyway, about who is coming to rookie camp. And if you look at the rookie camp roster, I mean, there's the obvious ones: Owen Beck, Shawn Farrell, Emil Heineman, Philip Meshar. I talked to you about Maxime Pellerin a couple of weeks back. There's Tyler Thorpe, who did well in the development camp earlier this year, and Florian Jacki as the forwards. Then on defense, you've got Lane Hudson, Logan Mailloux, Owen Protz, David Reinbacher. So really, there's no real surprise as far as who is going to be at the rookie camp. But the real surprise everybody is talking about is the lack of Ivan Demidov at the rookie camp. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh, they're surprised he's not there. Again, I just mentioned clickbait. That's all that is clickbait. Because if you would have listened carefully to how the Canadiens spoke, and specifically Kent Hughes, everybody and their mother knew that Ivan Demidov was under contract with SKA St. Petersburg, right? And the question was, would he make the team? If he was in the VHL, which is a secondary league in Russia, then he probably would have come to Canadiens rookie camp. But coming out of the under-23 team performance that he had against his own team, SKA St. Petersburg, and other teams from the KHL, he made his team, and he made his debut just the other night and looked fantastic out there. But you're not going to expect a player to leave his professional team where he's under contract to come to a rookie camp for another team in another league. I mean, let's be responsible adults here when we're talking about Ivan Demidov. He's made a commitment to a team in the KHL, and he wants to play for them. And he wants to play for the Canadiens after that. We all know this. So there's no surprise that Demidov's not on this list. He shouldn't be on this list. The one guy, the guys that surprised me, right, is nobody. this list is pretty much cookie cutter of what I expected to see at Canadiens Rookie Camp. 3 or 4 guys at the forward position that are going to push for their spots, maybe on the professional roster. I doubt it, and we'll get to that in a second. And then you've got a real battle on defense. You've got Logan Mailloux, David Reinbacher, and Lane Hudson. Everybody thought that Lane Hudson was a shoo-in to make this team. That's not necessarily true. According to everybody that's been talking, it's not 100%, especially after some comments that were made to Tony Marinaro by the Canadiens GM, Kent Hughes. It sounded like he wasn't 100% sure that Hudson would make it. And he also came out to say that if Hudson doesn't make the team as a defenseman, he won't keep him just to be a specialist. He'll send him to Laval and let him develop at the AHL level, which, by and large, is what we all want. We want the kid to be able to play significant minutes in an NHL uniform. Are you surprised? No. So here you are. You've got Hudson. You've got Reinbacher, who's coming off not a great season in Austria, but he did have a very good 12-game stretch with the Laval Rocket when he came over last year. And he's bulked up. He looked good in the Olympic qualifiers. And he came out publicly and said he expects to make the Canadiens roster. That competition bodes well. The guy that I want to see there, that I've already mentioned, is Logan Mailloux. And he's the other guy in this trio that is part of this group on defense that I'm going to be looking at. Mailloux's got that big shot. He's got that physical presence. He's good in his own zone, and he's got a mean streak. The Canadiens need that on the back end because right now the only one that they have is David Savard. There's nobody back there really, or I should say even Arbor Jacki, but they don't have that presence that Shea Weber used to have on defense. I said this last show. And so I want to see the battle between these three go on at rookie camp. I want to see how they fare, how they look, and if they're going to bring their A game to be able to make this team. I want one of them to make it. I want 2 of them to make it. I don't know if all 3 will, but that would be a surprise in and of itself, but it remains to be seen. The real battle for me is going to be at the forward position. And hear me out. Philip Meshar is one of the guys on the team that, is really going to be pushing the envelope here. He's coming to his 3rd rookie camp. Of course, he got picked 26th overall right behind the Slovak that got picked up at number 1 by the name of Yuri Slafkovsky. But by and large, Meshar has dominated in junior hockey with the Kitchener Rangers the last 2 seasons. He's well over 50 points. So you expect that to translate well at the American Hockey League level now, not necessarily at the NHL level. So let's see what he does in the offseason. Did he bulk up? Did he put on a little bit extra weight and muscle? And has he gotten any faster? Because Meshar has the talent. Slafkovsky has said it himself that Meshar has the talent to play at the NHL level. So we'll see whether he's there. I don't think he will be. And really, with the spaces on this roster, I really don't see him being able to push anybody off with the depth that we have at center. You're talking about, the likes of Suzuki, Doc, Newhook, who occasionally plays center as well, as does Doc, Dvorak, Evans. There's quite a few guys that are at center, so I don't really expect him to make the NHL leap, but stranger things have happened. After that is Emil Heineman, who we got in a trade from Calgary in exchange for Tyler Toffoli a few years back. And Heineman has been a little bit of a disappointment. He's played well for the Laval Rocket, but for me, Heineman is that buffer guy, the guy that's going to make your bottom 2 pairs and really isn't going to be that big of an X factor when it comes to your team. A lot like Jesse Ylonen, who just got released by the team and not picked up. Ylonen had all the talent in the world, but I don't think his hockey IQ was quite that high to be able to make that transition over to what people expected of him. He had the great shot. He had the ability to skate, but it never really translated for him. So, Heineman's in that same boat. He's had a few injuries. He's only played 59 AHL games. He's looked kind of good, but, he hasn't really lived up to the expectations of when the Canadiens actually picked him up. So it's going to be up to him to come out gangbusters in the rookie camp and try to at least get the attention of the organization and move forward from there. Finally, there's Owen Beck. And Owen Beck is an interesting cat. Owen Beck is 6 foot and he's not the biggest player in the world, but he's looked very good with Team Canada at the World Juniors. in the past 2 seasons at the Ontario Hockey League level, or actually in the 4 seasons in the Ontario Hockey League, I should say, he's just 2 points shy of 200 for his career. So those are significant numbers. And he's another guy who's expected to make an impact at the NHL level. So will he? Again, another centerman. We've got depth. That's great. But there's no room for him right now as it stands, right? If perhaps they decide to go with him instead of Jake Evans, I can see that happening. But I don't really want to see Owen Beck playing a third or fourth line role. I would prefer Beck be maybe top 6 to start, get a little bit of experience up there. Maybe third line would be good at the center position, but right now with Dvorak there, that's not going to happen. So I see all 3 of them actually starting in Laval, and possibly with injury making their way up and being able to push somebody away or make themselves invaluable, but I'm not going to hold my breath. I really think that at the forward position, there's nothing really there to be able to push it. But stranger things have happened. Guys have come out. They've had fantastic camps. And it wouldn't be the first time that Beck has had a good camp. He had a good camp last year. He had a good camp in his first ever camp with the Canadiens. So, I mean, yeah. Can I see Owen Beck pushing it if he put on a little bit of weight and he's coming out there with the same attitude that perhaps David Reinbacher has? Yes, I could see him making the team. But the question is, will he? We'll see starting this week. Now, let's talk about the aforementioned Corey Pronman and clickbait, which is essentially what this ranking is. Because if any journalist out there in good conscience could turn around and tell me that the Montreal Canadiens prospect pool is thinner than that of the Ottawa Senators, you need to go have your head examined. What do the Senators have? The Senators have what? Here, I have the list right here. They have Stützle, Yakimchuk, Sanderson, Ridley Gregg, and Osipchuk. Wow. You want me to read off the Canadiens list of prospects? Here we go. Slavkovsky, Demidov, Gooley, Reinbacher, Hudson, Barron, Hage, Mayu, Beck, Engstrom, Fowler, Volokin, Kapanen, Roy. 14 players. Okay? And of those 14 players, if I look very carefully, there are already 1, 2, 3, 4, if you count Demidov, who are playing professional hockey right now. Who's number 6 on that list, Mr. Pronman? And I get it, okay? The Athletic, just purchased by the New York Times. The Athletic subscription service. So how do you get people to get on a subscription service? You have a few people to look at this number 6 and lose their absolute minds. I'm not going to do that. But I will say this. If you want to be a reputable journalist, there are 2 things you have to do. Number 1, you cannot be biased against small players, which is what Pronman is. And 2, you cannot be biased against the Montreal Canadiens, which Pronman has been for years. All you got to do is look at every preseason ranking that he's ever given Montreal. And sure, in some seasons, it's been justified. But the last 2 or 3, come on, man. You can do better than that. So if you want to really generate clicks for your website, Mr. Pronman, I suggest you giving an opinion that isn't controversial or isn't your own and not supported by anybody else. Because I don't think anybody else has a Canadiens prospect pool lower than 3 on their list. Okay, number 1 by far is San Jose. I think despite the fact that they've made a couple of stupid trades lately, I really don't think that Mike Greer has done that bad of a job of, stocking the coffers for the San Jose Sharks. Okay? I think the guy who's done the worst job in the National Hockey League is Don Sweeney of the Boston Bruins, because the Bruins have nothing in the pipeline. Literally nothing. I think they rank 32nd across the board. So you want to be objective, Mr. Pronman? Take a look at your rankings again. Take a look at what's going on, because of the list of players that I talked about here, amongst those 14, I think there's only one guy who's below 6 feet, and that's Lane Hudson. Okay, and when you look at the performance of every guy on this list, short of Justin Barron, who I think still has a lot of development to do in his own zone, there's not one of these guys who doesn't deserve to be on this list. So, again, it comes down to clickbait. You're trying to get people to respond in a negative way to something that really shouldn't be there, to a piece of news that isn't really news. It's for lack of a better term, it's bullshit. And it's just something that somebody else wants people to read and say, hey, what the hell, man? No. Okay. Corey, be objective. It's what good journalists do. Maybe take a page out of Bryant Wiles' book. Then you might learn something and you might be a better journalist for it. Now, moving on. Let's talk about Cole Caufield switching his number from number 22 to number 13. And it's not the first time that he's worn number 13. He wore it before at the USA hockey level. And it's a wonderful tribute to his hockey hero. I mean, nothing is more profound than you actually putting on the number of the guy who inspired you as a smaller player to be a National Hockey League player. I mean, Johnny and Marty St. Louis by extension were the prototype, the blueprint for what a smaller player should be at the National Hockey League level. You don't have the height that you necessarily need to be a good National Hockey League player, but you've got the strength in your legs, the ability to move, the ability to skate, and you've got the hockey IQ, which is something that all three of these guys have. So, I mean, good for you. And, in talking about all of this, the other thing I wanted to bring up as far as tributes for Johnny Gaudreau is concerned is I want to know who the dimwit that works at the Bell Center is that pulled all the tributes off of that garage door or whatever the hell you want to call it at the Bell Center. People were leaving sticks, notes, flowers, whatever, and they were just unsticking them and taking them off. I mean, publicly, the Canadiens put out a statement to say that, how sorry they were about the death of Johnny Gaudreau. And across the league, you look at the candlelight vigil on Wednesday, on September 4th, for Johnny in both Calgary and Columbus, and I thought they were beautiful, especially the 13-minute moment of silence. I mean, you don't get better than that. For a group of people that large to remain silent for 13 minutes straight, that says something about the respect that this player had in both cities. So kudos to both Calgary and Columbus for what they did on that day. And then, you look at Pascal Vincent as well coming out and saying what he said about Johnny Gaudreau and how much he admired him. And, everything gets taken down. And I don't get that. And Chantal Machabée, who's done a masterful job since taking over the communications department for the Montreal Canadiens, she should have had some say in this, because the picture started coming out in social media and people started to respond. Why? Some people were saying, it's homeless people near the Bell Center taking it away. Have you been to the Bell Center lately? There aren't that many homeless people in the Plaza of Champions or whatever that area is where the bricks are. There aren't that many, right? It's in behind Windsor Station. There's no access to the metro there. There's nothing. So what do they go for? To break so that they get cut off from the wind and they don't get cold? No, because it's the middle of summer, or it's the beginning of fall, I should say. So why in the world would you blame homeless people on something like that? And I mean, if it's just passers-by, you're a bunch of degenerates, okay? Know your role. When people put sticks out like that, or flowers or notes, leave them where they are. I don't see you going out there and defaming Maurice Richard or Guy Lafleur's statues, or anybody else's statue for that matter that's in that plaza. Why should you go there and do that to a tribute for a young player and his brother who just tragically passed away? You've got to be some kind of a degenerate. And if it's a Bell Center employee, fire the guy. Don't even think twice. There's no reason why this guy should have gone out there and done it without asking permission. If you saw it and he said, who the hell did this? And he pulled it down, I'm sorry. You deserve to be fired for being such an idiot. It wasn't the time to do it. That entire week was literally dedicated to tributes to Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew. And you go out and you do something stupid like that. I don't care what that thing was put up for the Canadiens. Okay? The Canadiens are a class organization. They always have been. And so I don't see the reason why you, of all people, decided to take shit down if you're an employee. At the very least, what the Canadiens should have done is told, hang on, we're going to put them on another wall or an area that we're going to delegate for tributes to Johnny. And I think that's what the Canadiens should have done, given the public outcry. There should have been an area where people could have gone and paid their respects like there was across the league. Go to the door, drop a stick, drop some flowers, put up a teddy bear, whatever the case is. Even a railing with Johnny Gaudreau's picture on it that said in memory of Johnny Gaudreau, and let people put it there. And if somebody touches it from there, then by all means beat the living crap out of them. But, don't touch what people put there from the kindness of their hearts to show their respects. I mean, it'd be like going to a cemetery and defaming a stone. You don't do that kind of shit. And you shouldn't do it when it comes to a hockey player, especially somebody as young and talented as Johnny Gaudreau. Doesn't matter who the hockey player is, for that matter. But it shouldn't have been done, man. And it's sickening, to be honest. And finally, the last thing I'm going to talk about today is comments by Jean Perron in regards to Patrick Laine and his comparison to Stephane Richer. I know Jean personally, right? Jean Perron and I coached against each other when he was coaching the Israeli national junior team back in, I believe it was 2005. And, Jean came, he coached my team for a couple of days, and he knows his hockey. Don't get me wrong. I'm never going to say anything about his knowledge of hockey. Jean is an encyclopedia, bar none. But there's a reason why he only coached 4 years in the National Hockey League, and one of those reasons is his misevaluation of players. There's no doubt that Stephane Richer was a talented forward, but he wasn't talented because of Jean. Stephane Richer had an innate ability, and I've seen this firsthand because I've played against Stephane Richer. Okay, we played in an alumni game a few years ago, and I was playing in goal, and he decided to clap a slap shot at me, and let me tell you, I thought he was actually going to go higher with his windup, but just like Stephane would, he went to his waist and let it rip, and I swear to God, it was like a bullet came at me. I could barely even react. I got lucky that it hit the inside of my pad and went out the other way because I never moved. That's how fast that puck was going. And we weren't allowed slap shots, but it wasn't, technically that wasn't a slap shot. It was a snap shot because he didn't go above his waist, right? So he let it rip, and it flew right by me, through my legs, out the other side. I'm embarrassed to say it would have gone in the net if I hadn't barely touched it, but I didn't do it because I had the talent to do it. I did it because, holy shit, it was fast enough to hit my pad and went out the other way. Anyhow, let's get back to the topic at hand. Stephane was a fast, shifty winger on the right-hand side. Didn't play much defense, but he was quick on his feet for a big man who was, I think he was 6'3", 225 when he played. And he had that bomb of a shot, which was ranked among the best in the National Hockey League that time. And that time included one Al McInnes and Al Iafredi as well. Okay? So to be ranked among them is an honor in and of itself. So you can understand how fast that shot went. And nobody really clocked it back in those days. So, nobody really knew how fast Stephane's shot was. But let me tell you, it's fast. Okay? And is it comparable to Patrick Laine's? Sure. But Patrick Laine does take a full windup when he takes a slap shot, right? And the difference between these players is like night and day when you look at the way they played. Stephane primarily stayed on the right side or the middle, whereas Laine uses the entire ice. Laine prefers to shoot from his off wing, which gives him a better angle at the net. Stephane preferred to shoot from the right side. Okay? Stephane preferred to shoot while he was in flight to give him better velocity on his shot. Laine likes to be more stationary like an Alex Ovechkin and fire the puck at the net. So where exactly is the comparable? Just because these two guys were capable of scoring 50 goals? Stephane did it twice with the Canadiens, right? He did it once in 86-87, the year after they won the Cup. And I believe the second time he did it was actually in, was it 88, 89, or 89, 90? I can't remember. It was one of those two. But 86, 87 was 50 on the dot, and 88, 89, or 89, 90 was 51. Whereas Laine hasn't gotten to the 50 goal mark, but he has the capability to. So ask yourself this question. Why would you put that kind of pressure on a player coming in who's already proven that, he does have, issues with depression that he's had to go through, and he's had to correct those issues in the player assistance program? I mean, you know how Montreal can get, right? Montreal is the type of city where people absolutely love their Canadiens. It's the reason why I'm doing this podcast. And so we eat, sleep, drink, and shit Montreal Canadiens on a daily basis. So when somebody turns around and says, Laine could be the next Stephane Richer, well, that's a pretty picture, but it's inaccurate because Stephane Richer was Stephane Richer. Stephane Richer was a fast right winger who had a heavy shot and played primarily on one side of the ice, whereas Laine is a guy who's much more methodical in the stride, despite the fact that he is very fast on the ice. I would say that his skating stride is a lot like that of Mike Krushelnyski. Krushelnyski, when he skated back in the day, you heard the ice scream, crunch, crunch, crunch. And that's what you hear when Laine skates. You literally hear his skate dig right in. So there are two different kinds of skaters. Richer, for a big man, was much lighter on his feet. So a guy that's that light on his feet has the ability to change direction and shift a lot better than a guy who crunches the ice and skates with a much heavier foot, which is what Laine is. So to make the comparison based only on their ability to score goals, I mean, it's a bit of a stretch, okay, as far as I'm concerned. Getting back to the question of whether or not Laine can score 50, I think he can. Will he? I think he won't. I honestly think that he's going to be between the 30 and 40 goal range. When you set that 40 goal plateau for yourself, I mean, you're going to make the effort. And Laine is not shy about shooting the puck. He's not the guy who's going to make the extra pass to somebody. He's going to let the fucker rip when he can, right? That's the type of player he's always been. So why change that? I don't think he will. He's going to get the puck on his stick, bang, it's gone. And that's going to bode well for the Canadiens. The other thing that they're going to need to understand is when he lets that shot rip, players are going to have to follow up and go to the net because there are going to be rebound opportunities. When a shot is that heavy, like the one Laine has, and by extension what Richer used to have, there are a lot of goals that go in because of the fact guys get to the front of the net and they collect rebounds. Because it's shots that are that heavy are very hard to deaden when you're a goaltender. I think the guy who did that best, and you know he predates a lot of you out there who are listening right now, is Pelle Lindbergh. He went way too early, crashing his car around the pole because he was drunk driving his Porsche like an idiot. But there was no denying the fact that when a puck hit this guy's pads, it would die right in front of him, and he'd smother it. His rebound control was incredible. And so there's nobody in the league that does that now. The pads aren't even made that way to be able to absorb the impact. Okay? They're made more along the lines of, deflecting the puck to corners. That's why there's a wedge at the bottom to guide the puck over to the corner when you're in the butterfly, right? That's also why on blockers now they're not flat like they used to be, and goalies used to actually curve them to try to get that angle to be able to deflect them away from the net. Now there's a wedge at the top of your blocker to be able to push it over to the corner, right? So are Laine and Richer similar? The only similarity they have is that they're shots heavy. They are two completely different players playing, number one, in completely different eras. So to make that comparison, it's a little unfair to Patrick Laine. The goaltending is a hell of a lot better. The game is a hell of a lot faster. I mean, there's a lot of variables that go in there. So to say that they're the same type of player, no, they're not. Okay? Richer played in an era where the goaltenders were a lot smaller. The butterfly was barely in existence. I mean, Patrick Laine was in the league when Richer broke in at the same time. I think Richer broke in a year before Roy. So the butterfly was not the most predominant way for goaltenders to play. And if you think about guys out there like Kelly Rudy and Mike Vernon and Bill Ranford, they were more stand-up goalies that used to flop everywhere. In the mold of a Dominic Hasek, for example, who didn't play a butterfly style either. He just put body in front of puck and stopped it. So, stop putting the pressure on Laine to perform. He's putting enough pressure on himself. And yeah, he hit the ice recently and people were taking video. Oh, look at this. This is great. The guy's going out there getting his feet wet again. He hasn't been on the ice since he went into the program. So, he went to the Bell Center. He met his teammates for the first time. He went out on the ice, felt the puck a bit, did some stick tackling, took some shots, got a feel for what it was to play hockey again. And all you could see was a smile on his face. And I think that, number one, is the most important part. The second was, if you look at a lot of the pictures that were online, he was out there with his fiance. And he was smiling the entire time. So let him be happy, guys. Let's not worry about his performance right now. Let him just be happy. And the points will come. Because when players have fun on the ice when they're playing, they tend to have better results. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about, as I remind you guys once again to subscribe to the channel, like the channel, and hit the notifications bell. I need to put a shout out to former NHLer and my very good friend Shawn Anderson. Anderson's been running a prep school hockey program for the last 10 years in Hawkesbury, Ontario. And yesterday, he became part of hockey history where his new team, a junior team that he coaches as well as owns, called the Hawkesbury Knights, played the first USPHL premier game outside of the United States last night in Hawkesbury. I am very proudly the director of hockey operations for that hockey club, and I had to shout out Shawn because I know how much work he's put into this, and he's put his ideas out there and his way of thinking for everybody to see. And when you become that vulnerable and you give your ideas out, a lot of times people try to steal them and use them as their own. In this case, it actually benefited him and worked in his favor. So congratulations, Shawn, on a 7-2 victory last night against the Montreal Blackfees. And, continued success, because after all, your success is my success, very important. And for all of you out there watching this podcast, always remember, don't get caught by the clickbait. Don't get caught by the fake thumbnails. Look for the truth, because behind the truth is honest opinion. We'll see you next week.